Sukoi Gar! Greetings, I am Tad Larkin, the lore master of Manda-LORE, and today I'll be digging through the archives to elaborate on the Kamino Uprising.
Officially, there never was a clone rebellion on Kamino. Unofficially, approximately 20 years after we were created, a special detachment of the Imperial 501st Legion was dispatched to Kamino with orders to eradicate an army of clones that had been bred to take arms against the Empire.
In the years following the declaration of Palpatine's new order, the Galactic Empire took drastic economic steps to ensure its longevity, and would more often than not take wealthy enterprises, corporate conglomerates, and successful manufacturers and nationalize them, bringing them under the Empire's direct control. They did this with entities like the Trade Federation, Commerce Guild, Kuat Drive Yards, Sinar Fleet Systems, and many, many more. And for the most part, it was beneficial to those companies as well as the Empire. However, this wasn't the case with the Clone Masters on Kamino. By the Clone War's end, Kamino was no longer the sole producer of clones for the Grand Army, as advances in Arcanian cloning technology and the acquisition of the Spartai cloning cylinders from the Separatists during the Battle of Carteo in the years prior made cloning much faster and cheaper elsewhere. Mature human clones could now be grown in just 1 year versus the Kaminoans' 10, and while Kaminoan clones were of higher quality, the Empire favored producing the cheaper and faster clones produced on Centax II and Wayland, which greatly hurt Kamino's economy, as they were forbidden from producing clones for anyone but the Empire. This economic stranglehold, combined with the Empire's increasingly anti-alien policies, left many Kaminoans in Kamino's government feeling betrayed by the Empire, and a few of the Clone Masters began breeding their own clone army to secure Kamino's independence, and regain the prosperity they enjoyed in the years leading up to the war. Armed and armored with surplus Phase 1 clone trooper armor and DC series blasters left over from the early years of the Clone Wars, these so-called anti-troopers aided their Kaminoan masters in ejecting the Imperial garrison and regaining control of Tipoca City in 12 BBY. The Kaminoans wouldn't enjoy their regained independence for long, as the Empire wasted no time in getting the situation under control, going as far as to sending a detachment of the 501st Stormtrooper Legion led by the Mandalorian bounty hunter Boba Fett, contracted for his intimate knowledge of Tipoca City, being a clone himself. Imperial forces landed on Tipoca City's northernmost landing platform, while the anti-troopers secured the north and south cloning facilities as well as the central platforms. With Fett at the lead, stormtroopers smashed through the north facility's defenses and fought their way towards the laboratories, where he secured a template of his father Jango Fett's DNA and returned it to a landing craft awaiting on the north platform. DNA sample secure, Imperial troops pushed towards the center, and following stiff resistance from the anti-troopers, they secured the central platform. Using this as a staging point, the fighting 501st then broke through the defenses of the South Cloning Facility and sabotaged the life support systems, killing the embryos of future anti-troopers. As Imperial troops were pushing into the South Facility, anti-troopers managed to break Imperial lines to make a run for it, recapturing the northernmost and southernmost landing platforms and escorting their Kaminoan masters to awaiting transports. Fett and the 501st were prepared for this though, and proceeded to destroy their transports before they even broke atmosphere, ending the Kaminoans' dreams of independence in one surgical operation. In a final act of retaliation, portions of Tipoca City were bombarded from orbit, and the main cloning centers were moved to nearby Temira City, where the Kaminoans would continue to produce limited numbers of clones for their Imperial warlords. In the aftermath of the Kamino Uprising, clones would begin to be produced from different genetic templates to lessen the chances of this ever happening again, and soon, natural-born conscripts and enlisted personnel were introduced into the Stormtrooper Corps, and eventually phased out the clones completely. For a while, the 501st Legion would be the only Stormtrooper unit to still be comprised of Fett clones as late as the Battle of Hoth in 3 ABY, and after, it too would eventually be comprised of conscripts and enlistees. It wouldn't be until 9 ABY, 5 years after the Emperor's death at Endor, that the Empire would begin briefly using clones again, under Grand Admiral Thrawn, who recovered a set of Spartai cylinders from a storehouse on Wayland. This ends my findings on the Kamino Uprising. If you have any suggestions for future transmissions, don't be afraid to drop a comment. Special thanks to my patrons Wildcat144, The Grand Pope, Sexend, JTrips1997, David Miller, AJ Can't Think of a Good Pun Right Now, Dave the Grave, Zim the Despot, Matt Patton, Trav, and SW Archivist. If you'd like to support this channel, and perhaps even commission your own video, please visit my Patreon to find out how. Link is in the description. In the meantime, keep your comm channels open for future transmissions, and don't forget to subscribe. Tad Larkin, out.